So to unpack it all, the politics here in Washington are pretty much well defined. The Democrats, well, they say they want justice. Really what they want is this president to leave office. The Republicans can't get a big enough military budget, and the president of the United States needs to find a way to simmer relations with Russia without looking weak. It's a tall order. For more on that, we turn to Linda Gunter tonight. She is with the organization known as Beyond Nuclear. Linda, nice to have you with us.
Thanks for having me.
How did you take the president's speech from Russia?
Well, in some ways it wasn't a huge surprise because not only Russia but the US has been ramping up not only talk but nuclear weapons development for quite some time. They've both been modernizing their nuclear weapons arsenal, so it wasn't a huge surprise. But I think it comes in context of a couple of things. Probably, definitely the election. So it's the right kind of rhetoric to be delivering in Russia right now for his needs coming up for the election. But also in response to the nuclear posture review here in the United States, where we talked about having smaller, more quote-unquote usable nuclear weapons and upgrading our arsenals. So we seem to be back in rather similar rhetoric to the Cold War, frankly, where we're talking about an escalation again and more weapons, different weapons, new, more invincible weapons, when really both countries already have 7,000 nuclear weapons.
From what the president of Russia said, you could come to the conclusion that the United States is now at a military disadvantage if Russia can hit any country anywhere on the globe undetected. Your response?
Well, this idea of being undetected rather plays into the whole question about deterrence, which is the cornerstone of the argument that's made here about why we have nuclear weapons in the first place. If you've got one that can't be detected, that rather suggests that you're going to use it. But I think that this announcement by Putin is really about the missile defense system, which has always been a little bit of a myth, frankly.
Well, Obama said that he would never put those missile defense systems in Romania, and he did. And Putin views those, the Russians view those as offensive weapons. The United States says, no, those are defensive weapons because we've got issues with Iran and we don't trust them.
Well, they're not really weapons at all.
Putin comes back and says, well, you just did a nuclear deal with Iran.
Yeah.
And so this is all starting to really unravel, is it not?
I think so. I mean, I think we're in a very dangerous times when we have rhetoric like that and really no ability for diplomacy. When you have that kind of standoff, I mean, what should be happening are talks, but it looks like the door's not open on either side right now. I mean, going back to missile defense, you're talking about a system that's supposed to shoot down, missiles in the air, and it's been tested, but only with a plan in place that you know where it's going, what the trajectory is, what time it's coming, which you would never know in a real situation. And a missile defense system has to be 100% accurate, otherwise it's useless, because if one of these gets through, we've got a major catastrophe on our hands. So really, it's not about whether the missile defense would work or not work. I think it's all to do with this constant build-up between the two countries, going back into what would really be a futile arms race.
The politics here in Washington, do you think this speech is going to move the president to try to have some kind of face-to-face with world leaders when it comes to nuclear weapons? What's the result of this going to be?
That's a really good question. I mean, who knows what would move the president?
Isn't it time for a beer in Reykjavik?
Or maybe a vodka or two.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But, I mean, it's your guess is as good as mine what might move the president to talk to anybody. I mean, he tweets quite a lot. You mentioned at the top of the show that he hasn't yet on this. But that actually does worry allies in the West. And, the instability of those tweets and the kind of bellicose rhetoric and the enticing North Korea and Russia, that's very dangerous, I think.
Linda Gunter, good to have you with us tonight. Thank you so much.